can't hear that dog. Someone bring up, I had, my uncle died. My uncle passed away maybe 10, 12 days ago. He had a massive stroke. He was in the hospital for like a month and a half. And he had a lot of complications and stuff. But they had a situation where they said, hey, if you, we need to pull, they want to pull the tube out of him, the breathing tube. They said if he can't breathe on his own, he's done. He's he has to be on life support. And they were going to do it like on a Friday. And on Thursday, he pulled it out himself, and he was able to breathe. And so that kind of gave us some hope. And then a week or two later, he said, okay, he's got to be able to swallow. He's resisting. We're not, getting through to him. And we've done all we can, and we need to make a decision here that either you're going to put him on life support, but he's through at this hospital. We've done all we can do, so you need to go to the next step, which is decide if you're going to do some kind of life support thing and get that set up. And my dad was like, well, we're not ready to give up on him yet. My dad actually would try feeding him and this kind of thing. And he spent a couple of days with that. And they said, okay, by Friday you need to make the decision. Well, on Wednesday, my uncle died. And that's a gunshot. And, I bring this up. He had you couldn't communicate with him, or he couldn't communicate with us. But he was coherent. He knew what was going on around him. You could say point to so and so, and he could point to the person. And I told my dad, I said, take a legal pad in there and put the alphabet on it and tell him what you're going to do. So you'll point to the letter. If he wants to communicate and say something, you'll point to the letter and write him down, oh yeah, that one, okay, right. And see if you can't communicate with him and see what he wants to do. Now, he had specific instructions. He did not want to be on life support. But the family said, well, we can't give up on him now, this kind of thing or whatever. But that was not his instructions. His instructions were, hey, if it gets to that, pull the plug. And my dad wasn't hearing it. And so my dad never did do the legal pad thing because he knew my uncle probably would have said, pull the plug, I'm done. Anyway, they said, you got to decide something by Friday. And before they had to decide, he had passed, he had died. Now, my uncle, I think I did a video on this before, my uncle was the one that exposed me to conspiracy theory and Big Brother, CFR, the Bilderberg group, and all this kind of stuff back when I was like 11 years old. And he was known as that guy. He used to walk around with a shirt that said "Bloom and Doom." One of my relatives got it for him. But smart guy, wasn't married, didn't have any children. And I bring this up because he has a will, his estate's all set up and everything. And if this were to happen, what happened, he had specific instructions. Not that my family wanted to follow it, but he did have instructions. He left something behind so you knew what he wanted done. He wanted to be cremated. Didn't want to spend. He's like me, real frugal. Didn't want to spend anything on his exit. No big funeral. No big because some people these things are tens of thousands of dollars they can spend, and his they're spending nothing. I don't even think he had they might have a memorial party thing or something planned in the future, but didn't spend any big money on it because he didn't want that. And but he had, for me, it was a bummer losing my uncle, but not being able to communicate. And I think the reason he was fighting, trying to get him to learn how to swallow and feed, is he was done. He knew he was done. He was like 75 years old. And when they would fill him up on morphine, he was workable. But when he was not on the morphine, he fought everything. And to me, not being able to communicate, but being aware of what's going on around you, but you can't speak for yourself, that's got to be hell. I just can't imagine that. And that's why I tell my dad, do the legal pad thing, but he didn't go for that. Anyhow, I bring this up, like I said again, I bring this up because he left instructions. He didn't have a wife or children to take care of, but he didn't want any kind of medical thing to be a drain on the family or his estate. And so everything was taken care of. There was no guesswork of what to do. And thank goodness. I have another friend that died, I'd say about 5 months ago. He was much younger. He was like 55. And it was very quick. He had some pain on like the first of the month, and by the end of the month, he was dead. And they thought it was this, that, the other thing. I think it ended up being pancreatic cancer, which takes you like that. And he was dead. And had a wife and a child. Has a wife and child. And he was a handyman. He fixed stuff for people. Real good at what he did. Made a decent living. But he had no health insurance, no life insurance, and left his wife with nothing. Now, I'm sure he had his reasons or whatever the case was. I have health insurance. I don't want to be a hypocrite. I do not have life insurance. No wife, no kids, nothing to leave it to. I have enough cattle out there. I don't brand my cattle. So if I kicked off tomorrow and they needed, for whatever the case, my nephew knows, he go load up my cattle, take them all to sell, and we're done with it. Use that money to bury me or whatever. This friend of mine who died suddenly, left his wife with nothing. Now, the medical part, because she's a single mom, that can kind of be dealt with. There's programs, there's this, that. I don't think she's got to actually pay anything. He did not have, because he didn't have health insurance, it's not like he got great care. It wasn't like there was $1 million bill on his head. It might have been 50, 60, 70,000 or whatever. And I think that there's ways around that. That's a different story. But he had no life insurance, okay? And so she worked with him. So she didn't have a job, okay? He was her employer, so to speak. And so it's not like she just lost his income. She lost everything. They rented. They didn't own their home. They rented. Fortunately, the landlord was sensitive to the situation, so don't worry about the rent. And she had a lot of family to support her. And so, let's assume she didn't have that family, and let's assume that the landlord could not have said, hey, I got to have that rent. I know your situation is bad, but if you can't pay the rent, you get your 30-day notice, you're out of here. She'd have been on the street. Simple as that, her and her child. They've been living in the car. Because she didn't have enough money to go first and last in a down payment, deposit on another rental, and getting another rental without income, you don't have a job, you're not going to get a rental. You're basically out in the street. And so I bring this up. If you're talking to the guys here, if you have a family, a lot of guys that are young, 30s, 40s may not think about this so much. But you got to have something that covers your exit. At least enough money to get them by for 6 months, or get them out of the situation into something else, because you can't leave your family with nothing. And I think if you listen to that Dave Ramsey guy on the radio, he's got an insurance company he deals with called Zander, I believe it is, and they have term life insurance. It's just cheap, basic insurance. For like under $50 a month, you can get a good chunk of money that you can leave behind. That will at least allow them, just like this lady, if the landlord has said, hey, you're out of here, but if she knew she had 50 grand coming, well, okay, or she would have been able to pay pay the landlord. But let's say she could have time to find a job. This woman doesn't even have a job. I still don't think she's working. It's hard to get jobs around here, and so it's pretty devastating. But you can get a term life policy relatively inexpensive. I mean, for a couple of Starbucks, I think you're good. You can leave them something. And I mean, I don't know what the minimum is or how small a policy you can get, but really, I mean, if you had nothing else, I mean, it probably costs next to nothing to leave them 25 grand or 50 grand in some kind of a policy. So it's called term life insurance. Something you want to look into. But like I said, I don't have life insurance, so I don't want to be like a hypocrite. But if I had a family of some kind or someone depending on me, I would have it. But I have enough assets rolling around that they could sell in a weekend. If it came to that, but you'd really want to have, if you got a family that depends on you, something like that, you really want to leave something. I don't care if you're 25, if you're married and you got a kid, that's something you got to consider. 25, 35, whatever. But it's not very expensive, and I've never seen it like this. But I never had close-up personal contact, so to speak, on an insurance scenario like this, where someone had everything dialed in, said, wow, that part worked out smoothly, and someone who had nothing dialed in, and because of the grace of God and good people who supported this woman, if it weren't for that, she'd be out in the streets living in her car. And who knows where that would have gone. Whereas this guy probably for $30 or $40 a month could have got a policy that would have lasted her quite a long time, so she can make the transition. Being a widow with an income or whatever the case is. So consider that. I hate to promote. I don't mind. I hate talking about insurance. I could talk about death, but I hate talking about insurance. But that's something you want to look into. Term life policy for your family. Anyhow. Love you. God bless.